Jaden, a young and determined black athlete, stood on the sidelines, watching his scouts ignore him during tryouts. He felt unseen and overlooked, but he never let it crush his spirit. Today, Jaden is the face of a national campaign, showing the world that he could defy the odds. The same people who once dismissed him because of the color of his skin are now eager to recruit him. How did Jaden manage to flip the script and rise to the top? Before we dive into his incredible journey, take a moment to comment where you're watching from, and if this story inspires you, don't forget to subscribe. Jaden's heart pounded as he stepped onto the shiny, squeaky basketball court. The familiar sounds of sneakers skidding across the floor and the rhythmic bouncing of basketballs surrounded him. He took a deep breath, his eyes wide with excitement. This was his chance to show everyone what he was made of. At just 10 years old, Jaden had already fallen deeply in love with the game of basketball. Countless hours spent in his driveway perfecting his shots, practicing dribbles, and mimicking the moves of his favorite players had all led him to this very moment. Now he was standing at the tryouts for a prestigious youth basketball team, one he had dreamed of joining for years. The texture of the basketball in his hands felt both rough and familiar. He began to dribble, the ball moving effortlessly in sync with his every step. Left, right, between his legs, the movements came naturally, as if the ball was an extension of his body. "All right, everyone, let's see what you've got," the coach called out. Jaden's face lit up. This was it, his moment to shine. Without hesitation, he dashed down the court, weaving through the other players. His speed was jaw-dropping, his agility flawless. As he approached the hoop, he took a leap, the basketball rolling off his fingertips and arching gracefully through the air. Swish! The ball sliced through the net with perfect precision. A warm wave of pride surged through him. He had been practicing that exact shot for weeks. As Jaden jogged back to the starting line, he caught the coach's eye. The coach gave him a brief nod, and Jaden's heart soared. That small acknowledgement felt like a victory in itself. Throughout the tryout, Jaden gave it everything he had. His quick reflexes, sharp passes, and solid defense all showcased his natural talent. His love for the game was obvious to anyone watching, as each movement was filled with passion and determination. As he continued to play, Jaden allowed himself to dream big. He pictured himself as a star player, leading his team to glorious victories. He could see it, himself making game-winning shots, raising trophies high above his head, the crowd cheering his name. These dreams fueled him, pushing him to play harder, to run faster, to give more than anyone else on the court. When the final whistle blew, Jaden was drenched in sweat, but he couldn't stop smiling. He felt good. No, he felt great. He had given his best, and now, just maybe, this was the beginning of something amazing. As the tryouts went on, Jaden's talent became impossible to ignore. His sneakers squeaked against the polished court as he sped past other players with ease. His speed was undeniable, his movements graceful yet powerful. During the dribbling drills, his control over the ball was flawless. He danced through the maze of cones with such skill that it almost seemed effortless, never once losing grip of the ball. His crossovers were sharp, clean, and precise, earning a few impressed murmurs from those watching. When it came time for passing drills, Jaden's intelligence on the court became even clearer. He always seemed to know where his teammates were and who was open. His passes were fast, crisp, and accurate, landing right in his teammates' hands every time. It was obvious to anyone watching that his ability to read the game was well beyond his years. As the tryout progressed, Jaden's confidence grew. This was his element, doing what he loved more than anything. The pure joy of playing basketball shone on his face, even as beads of sweat trickled down his forehead. But then, during a quick glance towards the sidelines, Jaden noticed something that made his heart sink. The coaches and scouts, all white, stood with their clipboards in hand, but they seemed to be paying more attention to the white athletes on the court. Their eyes followed those players closely, their pens scribbling down notes rapidly. Jaden frowned, feeling a twinge of frustration. He had just watched one of the white players fumble the ball and nearly trip over himself during a layup drill. Yet, to Jaden's surprise, one of the scouts leaned in to whisper something to the coach, both of them nodding in agreement as if they were impressed. Jaden had executed that very same drill with perfect skill moments earlier, but he hadn't received the same acknowledgement. He shook his head, trying to clear his mind of doubt. This wasn't the time to get discouraged. He needed to stay focused on his game. Jaden reminded himself to play hard and let his performance speak for itself. He couldn't control what the scouts saw or didn't see, but he could control how he played. And so, he played his heart out. He stole the ball from his opponents with precision, made perfect passes to his teammates, and sank shot after shot with ease. His passion and determination burned brighter than ever, and his natural leadership began to emerge on the court. Jaden stood tall, calling out plays and encouraging his teammates as the tryout came to an end. The group of boys, their faces flushed with sweat and anticipation, gathered around the coaches and scouts, eager to hear who made the team. Jaden's heart was pounding, his breathing rapid after the intense workout. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, his eyes locked on the clipboard one of the scouts held tightly in his hands. The head coach cleared his throat, silencing the excited murmurs. "All right, boys," he began, his voice booming across the gym. "We've made our decisions. When I call your name, step forward." Jaden's pulse quickened. He stood there, hopeful, his fingers crossed behind his back. He had given everything he had during the tryouts, showcasing skills that even impressed himself. He felt confident they had seen his dedication, his love for the game, and his undeniable talent. One by one, names were called out. Each time it wasn't his, Jaden's heart sank a little deeper. His eyes darted nervously between the coaches and the shrinking group of players left standing. Finally, the coach announced the last name, and lastly, Tommy Johnson. Jaden's heart dropped as he watched Tommy, a white player who had struggled through the drills and barely made any baskets, step forward with the other selected boys. Tommy had fumbled more than once, and his performance had been far from impressive. Yet there he was, standing proudly with the chosen group. A wave of confusion crashed over Jaden. He blinked, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. How could Tommy be chosen over him? Jaden had clearly outperformed him in nearly every drill and scrimmage. As the reality of the situation settled in, a crushing weight pressed on his chest. Despite his standout performance, his speed, agility, and passion, it hadn't been enough. Jaden's eyes stung with unshed tears as he looked at the chosen players, all of them white. The painful truth hit him hard, like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about talent or hard work. It was about something beyond his control, the color of his skin. He walked home slowly, his basketball tucked under his arm, his head hung low. The familiar route to his house had never felt so long. Each step was heavy with disappointment, each breath a reminder of the unfairness he had just faced. When he finally reached his home, he saw his parents waiting on the porch, their faces full of concern. "Hey, champ," his father called out, his voice gentle. "How did it go?" Jaden couldn't bring himself to answer. He shook his head, his lower lip trembling as he climbed the porch steps. His mother quickly wrapped him in a comforting embrace, and the tears he had fought so hard to hold back finally spilled over. "Oh, sweetheart," his mother whispered softly, rubbing his back. "It's okay. Let it out." They guided him inside, settling on the living room couch. Jaden's father sat down next to him, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You want to talk about it, son?" he asked kindly. Between quiet sobs, Jaden recounted the tryout, explaining how he had played with everything he had, only to be passed over for less skilled players. His voice trembled as he finished. "I don't understand. Why wasn't I good enough?" His parents exchanged a glance, their eyes heavy with a mix of sadness and understanding. His father sighed deeply. "Jaden, sometimes in life, things aren't fair. People can be judged by things they can't control, like the color of their skin." Jaden's brow furrowed. "But that's not right," he said, frustration creeping into his voice. His mother nodded, her voice soft but firm. "No, it's not right. But it's something we sometimes have to face. What matters most is how we respond to it." His father squeezed his shoulder gently. "You can't control how others see you, son. But you can control how hard you work and how you carry yourself." Jaden struggled to make sense of it all. The situation felt so unfair, so wrong. "So, what do I do now?" he asked quietly. His father's grip tightened a little, offering silent strength. "You keep practicing. You keep getting better. Don't let this setback make you stop loving the game or stop believing in yourself." The next morning, Jaden woke up before dawn. His alarm clock buzzed, and though he was still tired, his mind was already on what lay ahead. The sting of rejection was still fresh, but instead of breaking him, it had sparked a fire inside. Moving quietly to avoid waking his parents, Jaden slipped out of bed. He put on his basketball shorts and sneakers, grabbed his worn-out basketball, and headed out the door. The cool morning air nipped at his skin as he walked to the local basketball court, which stood empty in the early hours, just the way he liked it. The court was quiet, the soft glow of the rising sun barely visible on the horizon. It was peaceful, but Jaden's mind was anything but. His thoughts raced with determination. This setback, this disappointment, it wasn't going to define him. He would work harder, push himself further, and make sure that the next time, no one would be able to overlook him. With a deep breath, Jaden stepped onto the court, the familiar sound of the ball bouncing on the pavement echoing in the still morning air. Each bounce seemed to mark a new beginning, a promise to himself that he wouldn't give up, no matter what. The early morning silence of the empty basketball court became Jaden's sanctuary, allowing him to channel all his energy into his solo training. Each bounce of the ball echoed in the stillness, and every movement he made was deliberate and focused. He began with dribbling drills, left hand, right hand, crossover, his hands working in perfect rhythm with the ball. Each dribble felt like a small act of defiance, a statement against those who had dismissed him during the tryouts. He pushed himself harder and faster, refusing to stop even when his arms ached and sweat dripped from his forehead. Next came shooting practice. Jaden carefully positioned himself at different spots around the court, his eyes never leaving the hoop. Shot after shot, he focused on his form, perfecting his stance and release. Some shots swished through the net with a satisfying sound, while others bounced off the rim. But Jaden didn't let the misses bother him. Each failed shot was just another chance to improve, another step toward becoming the player he knew he could be. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the heat intensified, but Jaden didn't slow down. He switched to running drills, sprinting from one end of the court to the other. His legs burned, his lungs begged for air, but he pushed through the pain. In his mind, he could still see the faces of the scouts who had looked past him. The thought only fueled him more, driving him to run faster and harder with each lap. Day after day, Jaden returned to the court. Occasionally, other kids would come by to play, but Jaden remained laser-focused on his solo training. He had a mission now. He was determined to get better, to become so good that no one could deny his talent. The sting of rejection from the tryouts had hurt deeply, but it had also awakened something powerful inside him, a burning desire to prove himself. As he trained under the sun's relentless heat, Jaden began to notice changes in himself. He was getting faster, stronger, and more skilled with every practice session. He wasn't just playing basketball anymore. He was shaping himself into the player he knew he was destined to become. One morning, after a particularly grueling set of drills, Jaden wandered over to a nearby newspaper stand to catch his breath. The front page of the local sports section caught his eye, and his heart sank as he saw the bold headline, "Rising Stars of Youth Basketball." His eyes scanned the article, recognizing the names and faces of the white players who had been selected at the tryouts. They were being praised for their natural talent and their promising futures. Jaden's hands trembled slightly as he read the words, the injustice of it all hitting him again. How could his abilities have been so easily overlooked? For a brief moment, the bitterness started to creep back in, but then something inside Jaden shifted. Instead of letting the anger consume him, he felt a surge of new determination. He stared at the smiling faces in the newspaper and made a silent vow to himself. One day, my name will be in those headlines, not because of how I look, but because of how I play. With that renewed sense of purpose, Jaden returned to the court. Every dribble, every shot, every sprint now had a deeper meaning. He wasn't just playing to improve his skills anymore, he was playing to prove a point. He wanted to show the world that talent knows no color. He imagined future headlines, picturing his name in bold print and his photo alongside stories of his achievements. It didn't matter how long it took or how much harder he had to work. Jaden was determined to earn the recognition he deserved. The sun beat down on him, but Jaden barely noticed the heat. His focus was too intense. Every shot he made, every pass he visualized, brought him one step closer to his dream. He didn't let the long hours of practice discourage him. Instead, he embraced the challenge, knowing that each day was an opportunity to get better. Rain or shine, Jaden was at that court. The familiar sound of his basketball bouncing against the pavement became a constant rhythm in the neighborhood. His dedication was unwavering. He spent countless hours analyzing every aspect of his game, his shooting form, the arc of the ball, and the follow-through of his wrist. Missed shots didn't frustrate him. They fueled his desire to improve. Each mistake was a lesson, a chance to refine his technique. As the weeks passed, Jaden's relentless drive didn't go unnoticed. The neighborhood kids, curious and impressed, began to watch him from the sidelines. They were amazed at his focus and discipline. Jaden often arrived at the court just as the sun was rising, the sound of his dribbling echoing through the quiet streets. On other days, he stayed until the last light of the day, shooting baskets under the dim glow of the streetlights. Even at school, people began to see a change in Jaden. During recess, while other kids played games, Jaden was off practicing his ball handling skills. During lunch, he could often be found with his nose buried in basketball strategy books, absorbing every piece of information he could get. He had become obsessed with mastering the game, not just physically, but mentally too. Jaden knew that success wasn't just about raw talent, it was about outworking everyone else. And that's exactly what he intended to do. He wasn't going to rely on anyone else's validation or recognition. He was going to earn it on his own terms. Hey, Jaden and his classmate Mike called out one day during recess. "Want to join our pickup game?" Jaden glanced up from where he was practicing. For a moment, he considered the offer, but then smiled and shook his head. "Thanks, but I've got to work on my free throws," he replied, his tone friendly yet focused. Mike gave him an incredulous look. "Man, you're always practicing. You must really love basketball." Jaden nodded, his eyes gleaming with passion. "I do," he said confidently. "And one day, I'm going to be the best." Word about Jaden's dedication began to spread, and more kids started coming to the court to watch him train. They were amazed at how much his skills had improved. The way he moved, so fluid, confident, and precise, was a sight to behold. Occasionally, he'd pull off a particularly tough move, and the small crowd would erupt into applause. Jaden appreciated their support, but never let it get to his head. He'd acknowledge them with a brief smile, nod in thanks, and then return to his drills, more focused than ever. His work ethic was contagious. Soon, other kids were asking Jaden for tips, eager to learn his secret. But there was no magic formula, just sheer hard work, relentless determination, and an unshakable belief in himself. As the years passed, Jaden's commitment to basketball never wavered. Practicing daily became as routine as breathing for him. With high school just around the corner, he set his sights on the upcoming tryouts. The thought loomed large in his mind, but unlike before, Jaden wasn't afraid. He was ready. Every morning before dawn, Jaden woke up, slipped into his worn-out sneakers, grabbed his basketball, and headed to the court. The cool morning air may have nipped at his skin, but his focus was singular, becoming the best he could be. By this point, his skills had grown tremendously. His shooting was deadly accurate, his dribbling precise and controlled, and his speed on the court was nothing short of impressive. He could now sink free throws with his eyes closed and execute plays as if he had been playing with professionals for years. As the tryout date approached, a mix of excitement and nerves bubbled inside him. He couldn't help but remember the sting of being overlooked years ago, but he quickly pushed those thoughts aside. This time was going to be different. He had worked far too hard to be ignored again. "You've got this, son," his father said one evening, noticing the look of determination on Jaden's face. "No matter what happens, we're proud of you." Jaden nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude for his parents' unwavering support. They had always believed in him, and that belief had been a constant source of strength over the years. In the final weeks leading up to the tryout, Jaden intensified his training. He studied basketball strategies, worked on his endurance, and visualized himself performing well during the tryout. Nothing was left to chance. The night before the big day, Jaden lay in bed, his heart racing with anticipation. He took deep, calming breaths, reminding himself of all the hard work he had put in. "I'm ready," he whispered to himself. "I've done everything I can. Tomorrow, I'll show them what I'm made of." As sleep slowly overtook him, Jaden felt a wave of peace wash over him. He knew that, no matter what the outcome would be, he had already achieved something remarkable. He had taken disappointment and turned it into determination, rejection and turned it into resilience. Tomorrow was his chance to shine, and he was prepared to give it his all. The day of the high school tryouts finally arrived. Jaden woke up early, his stomach twisted in a knot of nerves. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of the countless hours he had spent practicing for this very moment. He was ready. As he walked into the unfamiliar gym, the familiar sound of sneakers squeaking against the floor and basketballs bouncing filled the air. Jaden scanned the crowd, noticing a diverse group of players warming up. This wasn't the same place that had rejected him years ago, and for the first time in a while, Jaden felt a glimmer of hope. The environment was different, and maybe, just maybe, this time would be too. The coaches called everyone to attention, explaining the tryout process. Jaden listened intently, his heart beating wildly in his chest. As the drills began, he felt a familiar twinge of anxiety creeping in, but he quickly pushed it aside. This was his moment. He was ready for this. During the first set of drills, Jaden's agility stood out immediately. He weaved through the cones with blinding speed, leaving some of the other players in awe. His dribbling was crisp and controlled, and he could sense the coaches noticing his precision. Next up were the shooting drills, and this was where Jaden's countless hours of practice really began to pay off. Shot after shot, the ball sailed through the net with perfect form. His release was smooth, and even when the pressure mounted, Jaden maintained his focus. The coaches exchanged glances, nodding approvingly at Jaden's performance. He wasn't just showing them that he could play. He was proving that he had the skills, discipline, and drive to compete at a high level. Each move he made on the court was a testament to his dedication, and the other players couldn't help but notice. By the end of the drills, Jaden felt a sense of pride swelling inside him. This time, he knew he had shown the coaches what he was truly capable of. He wasn't the same kid who had been overlooked all those years ago. He had grown, learned, and improved. This was his moment, and he had given it everything he had. The tryout wasn't over yet, but Jaden was already feeling like he had achieved a victory just by being there, showing his skill and resilience to everyone in that gym. This time, things were going to be different. Fatigue began to creep in, but Jaden pushed harder, refusing to let exhaustion slow him down. The scrimmage portion of the tryout was where he knew he could truly shine. This was his opportunity to showcase everything he had worked for. As soon as the ball was tipped, Jaden was everywhere, anticipating passes, making sharp defensive plays, and setting up his teammates for easy baskets. His court vision was impeccable. It seemed like he had an innate sense of where every player was on the floor at any given time, making pinpoint passes that impressed both his teammates and the coaches. When he had the ball, Jaden moved with purpose and grace, effortlessly outmaneuvering defenders. In one particularly breathtaking moment, he received a pass at the three-point line. Without a second thought, he rose into the air and released the ball with flawless form. The gym fell silent as everyone watched the ball arc perfectly through the air before swishing through the net. The sound of the ball hitting nothing but net was followed by a chorus of cheers from the other players. Even the coaches couldn't suppress their smiles. By the end of the tryout, Jaden was completely breathless, but he felt exhilarated. He had given everything he had, pouring years of hard work and dedication onto that court. The impressed looks on the coaches' faces told him that his performance had been remarkable. As the session came to a close, Coach Williams, a seasoned coach with a sharp eye for talent, stood on the sidelines, his gaze fixed on Jaden. Over the years, he had seen countless players come and go, but there was something special about this boy, a raw talent that couldn't be ignored. When the other players began to file out of the gym, Coach Williams made his way over to Jaden. "Jaden, right?" the coach asked, his voice warm and full of encouragement. Jaden's heart raced as he nodded. "Yes, sir," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady despite the nerves fluttering inside him. "I've been watching you today," Coach Williams said, a smile spreading across his face. "I've got to say, I'm impressed. Your skill, your dedication, it's clear you've put in the work." A surge of hope welled up inside Jaden. Could this be the moment he had been dreaming of for so long? Coach Williams continued, "I've seen a lot of talented players in my time, but what you've shown today is something special. Your court vision, your teamwork, your ability to read the game, it's extraordinary, especially for someone your age." Jaden's eyes widened in disbelief. Was this really happening? He had always believed in his abilities, but to hear it from someone like Coach Williams was overwhelming. "I'd like to offer you a spot on the varsity team," Coach Williams said, his voice steady and confident. "You've earned it, Jaden. Your hard work and talent deserve to be recognized." Tears welled up in Jaden's eyes as the weight of those words sank in. After years of being overlooked, doubted, and rejected, he was finally being given the chance he had worked so hard for. All those early mornings and long hours on the court had finally paid off. "Thank you, Coach," Jaden managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't let you down." Coach Williams placed a reassuring hand on Jaden's shoulder. "I know you won't, son. Welcome to the team." As Jaden walked out of the gym that day, a weight lifted off his shoulders. He had been seen, truly seen for the player he was, not for the color of his skin or anything else beyond his control. The road ahead would be challenging, but Jaden was ready. He had been given his chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. Weeks flew by, and Jaden quickly became an impactful presence on the varsity team. His dedication and skill shone through in every practice and game. Coach Williams had made the right call, and Jaden was determined to prove it at every opportunity. During their first game of the season, Jaden's teammates were anxious. They were facing a tough opponent known for their aggressive defense. But as soon as Jaden stepped onto the court, the tension melted away. His calm confidence seemed to settle the team, and they fed off his energy. With lightning-fast moves and incredible accuracy, Jaden weaved through the opposing team's defense with ease. He set up play after play, creating opportunities for his teammates to score. His leadership on the court was evident. When the final buzzer sounded, Jaden's team had secured a comfortable win, thanks in large part to his standout performance. As the season progressed, word began to spread about Jaden, the talented young player who was turning heads at every game. Local sports fans started showing up just to watch him play, marveling at his speed, agility, and ability to read the game like a seasoned pro. His reputation was growing fast, and he was becoming the talk of the town. At first, Jaden's teammates had been unsure about the new player on the team, but it didn't take long for them to recognize his value. They began to look to him for leadership on the court, trusting his judgment and relying on his skills. Jaden, once the kid who had been overlooked, had become the one everyone turned to when the game was on the line. Each game was another chance for Jaden to prove himself, and each time, he delivered. With every victory, every highlight reel play, he was inching closer to his dream. Jaden's teammate Marcus clapped him on the back after a particularly tough game. "Man, Jaden, you're something else. I don't know where we'd be without you." Jaden smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. Finally, he was being recognized not only for his talent but for his ability to lift his team in critical moments. He wasn't just a standout player, he was part of a team that valued and depended on him. As the season progressed, Jaden's school team climbed the rankings. They were winning more games than they had in years, and much of their success was thanks to Jaden's contributions. Local newspapers began to take notice, with headlines praising the young star who was shaking up high school basketball in the area. When the basketball season neared its end, Jaden's impact on the team was undeniable. His speed, skill, and leadership had transformed the once struggling varsity squad into a formidable force. Their incredible turnaround didn't go unnoticed. When it was time for the annual sports awards ceremony, Jaden's name was on everyone's lips. The night of the ceremony arrived, and Jaden sat nervously among his teammates, his parents beaming with pride from the audience. The announcer took the stage, and the room fell silent. And now, for the Rookie of the Year award, the announcer's voice boomed. This year's recipient has shown exceptional skill, sportsmanship, and leadership both on and off the court. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Jaden Rodriguez. The room erupted in applause. Jaden, stunned, made his way to the stage. His teammates cheered, patting him on the back as he passed. As he accepted the trophy, memories flashed through his mind. All those early mornings, the countless hours of practice, and the pain of that first rejection. "Thank you," Jaden said softly into the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. "This means so much to me. I couldn't have done it without my teammates, my coach, and my family." As he stepped off the stage, trophy in hand, he was engulfed by a sea of congratulations. His parents rushed to embrace him, tears of joy in their eyes. "We're so proud of you, son," his father said, his voice cracking slightly. Jaden smiled, overwhelmed by the moment. But even in the midst of this triumph, he remained grounded. He knew this award, while a huge milestone, was just the beginning. There was still so much more to achieve, so much more to prove. As the night's excitement wound down, Jaden found a quiet moment to reflect. He looked down at the trophy, a symbol of how far he'd come. But in his heart, he knew his journey in basketball was far from over. This was only the first step on a long road ahead. As autumn arrived, bringing with it a crisp chill in the air, a new basketball season began. Now a sophomore, Jaden approached the upcoming games with a mix of excitement and determination. His Rookie of the Year trophy sat proudly on his shelf at home, but he understood that last year's success didn't guarantee anything for the future. The first practice of the season was grueling. Coach Williams had the team running drills and scrimmages for hours, pushing them to their absolute limits. Despite his accolades, Jaden didn't slack off for a second. He sprinted harder, jumped higher, and passed more accurately than ever before. As the season wore on, the team began facing tougher opponents. Schools from across the state, many with long histories of basketball excellence, now saw Jaden's team as a serious challenger. The games were grueling, and not every match ended in victory. But with each challenge, Jaden and his teammates learned and grew stronger. Their biggest test yet came during the state semifinals. The gym was packed with excited fans, the buzz of anticipation filling the air. Jaden's heart pounded as he stepped onto the court, fully aware that this game could make or break their season. From the opening whistle, the opposing team proved to be fierce competitors. They matched Jaden's team point for point, keeping the score close throughout the first half. Jaden pushed himself harder than ever, his muscles screaming with every sprint down the court. As the final quarter began, Jaden's team was down by 5 points. The pressure was immense, and Jaden could feel the weight of his team's hopes resting on his shoulders. They needed something special to turn the tide. With just seconds left on the clock, the ball was in Jaden's hands. He dribbled up the court, dodging a defender, and with a leap of faith, launched a three-pointer that could tie the game. The ball sailed through the air, its trajectory captivating the entire gym. Time seemed to slow as everyone held their breath, watching the ball's arc. Control. Jaden had transformed himself from a talented player into a true leader on and off the court. Each game, each practice, was another step toward redeeming himself from the loss that had haunted him. He wasn't just playing to win anymore. He was playing to become the best version of himself. The fire inside him, once dimmed by defeat, now burned brighter than ever. Despite the heartbreak of that semifinal loss, Jaden had grown both mentally and physically. Coach Williams continued to mentor him, not only sharpening his basketball techniques, but also guiding him through the emotional aspects of being an athlete. "Losses don't define you, Jaden," Coach Williams would remind him. "How you come back from them does." Jaden took that to heart. He spent extra hours in the gym, practicing everything from free throws to footwork. After each drill, Coach Williams would give him feedback, but it was Jaden's relentless drive that set him apart. Every missed shot was just another chance to improve, every mistake a lesson. His focus was unshakable. At school, Jaden's commitment to excellence became contagious. His teammates looked up to him, not only for his skill but for the way he handled pressure and setbacks. He wasn't just a player anymore, he had become the backbone of the team. Even on days when he wasn't the one scoring the most points, his leadership and presence on the court were undeniable. Jaden had learned that basketball, like life, wasn't just about individual glory. It was about lifting those around you. At home, his father's words from that night continued to echo in Jaden's mind. Setbacks aren't the end of the road. They're just bumps along the way. The quiet strength of those words gave Jaden a new sense of resilience. He knew that he had faced tougher challenges before and come out stronger, and that thought kept him moving forward, even on the hardest days. The year passed in a blur of games, practices, and victories. As the new basketball season kicked off, Jaden was no longer the rookie trying to prove himself. He was the player everyone was watching. The team entered the season with a sense of purpose, and Jaden led the charge. He was determined that this year would be different. The team advanced quickly through the ranks, winning game after game. Each victory felt like a step toward redemption, but Jaden knew the true test was yet to come. The state championship was in their sights, and nothing was going to stop them this time. When the playoffs arrived, the energy around the team was electric. Fans packed the bleachers, buzzing with excitement. Everyone knew what was at stake. Jaden's teammates looked to him for guidance, and he didn't disappoint. Game after game, he led with a calm intensity, making clutch plays and lifting his teammates when they needed it most. Finally, the day of the state championship arrived. The gymnasium was filled with eager fans, the air thick with tension. Jaden stood at the center of the court, his heart racing. He thought back to that painful loss the year before and how it had fueled his every move since. But today wasn't about the past. It was about the future. From the very beginning, the game was a battle. The opposing team was tough, but Jaden and his team had prepared for this moment all year. Jaden played with a laser focus, setting up plays, scoring crucial points, and defending with everything he had. The game was close, but Jaden refused to let the pressure get to him. With only seconds left on the clock and his team down by 2 points, Jaden had the ball in his hands again. This time, there was no hesitation. He dribbled past his defender, faked a pass to the wing, and launched a three-pointer from the top of the key. The crowd held its breath as the ball soared through the air. Time seemed to stand still as it arched toward the basket. And then, swish star. The ball dropped cleanly through the net. The gym erupted in cheers as the buzzer sounded. Jaden's team had won. They were state champions. Jaden stood in the center of the court, soaking in the moment. His teammates swarmed around him, lifting him in celebration. The defeat that had haunted him was now replaced by a victory that was sweeter than he could have ever imagined. Later, as Jaden held the championship trophy in his hands, he thought about how far he had come. Every setback, every doubt, every early morning practice had led to this moment. He had proven to himself and everyone else that perseverance, hard work, and resilience could turn any loss into a triumph. His father's words came back to him once more. Every setback is just a setup for a comeback, and Jaden knew that this was only the beginning of many more comebacks to come. Determination and skill proved too much to be contained. No matter what defensive strategies were thrown his way, Jaden found a way to break through. He adjusted quickly, finding new ways to contribute to his team's success. If they doubled him, he dished out perfect assists. If they tried to block his drives, he'd pull up for a mid-range jumper or make a precision pass to an open teammate. His versatility made him nearly unstoppable, and his basketball IQ was on full display. The headlines continued to tell the story of Jaden's rise. Rodriguez dominates in regional tournament, and Tigers star player leads team to victory. Each game brought more attention and more pressure, but Jaden refused to let it distract him. For him, it wasn't about individual accolades, It was about bringing his team to the championship. His parents, ever supportive, attended every game, sitting in the stands with quiet pride. They watched as their son handled the pressure with grace, never once letting the growing attention get to his head. The scrapbook of clippings they had started the year before was now bursting with articles detailing Jaden's incredible journey. The excitement at school mirrored what was happening on the court. Pep rallies grew louder, and the student body rallied behind Jaden and his team. Every hallway was decorated with banners cheering them on, and it seemed like the whole school was riding the wave of excitement. Teachers, classmates, and even the school staff stopped Jaden in the hallways to wish him luck. But despite the attention, Jaden stayed focused, keeping his eye on the real goal, winning the regional championship. As the tournament advanced to its final stages, the pressure mounted. Jaden's team faced their toughest competition yet in the semi-finals. The opposing team was stacked with talented players, and they had clearly designed a game plan to contain Jaden. From the opening whistle, they double-teamed him, pressured him every time he touched the ball, and tried to shut down his passing lanes. But Jaden was ready. He had anticipated this kind of defense and had spent countless hours working with Coach Williams on how to handle it. Rather than forcing difficult shots, Jaden became a masterful facilitator. He found his teammates in perfect positions, setting them up for easy baskets. His unselfish play allowed his team to stay competitive, even when the defense tried to neutralize his scoring ability. With every smart play, Jaden's teammates gained confidence. They began to hit shots from the perimeter, crash the boards for rebounds, and play gritty defense. The team's chemistry was undeniable, and it was Jaden's leadership that kept them united under pressure. Late in the fourth quarter, the game was tied, and the crowd was on the edge of their seats. The clock ticked down, and Jaden had the ball in his hands. The defense swarmed him, but with a calm that belied his years. He faked a drive, sending both defenders toward the basket, and passed to an open teammate in the corner. His teammate, wide open, nailed a three-pointer to give the team the lead. The crowd erupted. The opposing team scrambled, but they couldn't recover. Jaden's team won the game, securing their place in the regional championship. As the final buzzer sounded, his teammates rushed to embrace him, knowing that they had just witnessed something special. Jaden's calm leadership under pressure had propelled them to victory. His teammates celebrated around him, but Jaden, ever humble, gave all the credit to them. Reporters gathered after the game, eager to speak to the rising star. When asked how he felt about his performance, Jaden deflected the praise, saying, "It's not about me. It's about us. We're a team, and tonight everyone stepped up. I couldn't do this without them." The regional championship was just days away, and the entire town was buzzing with anticipation. This was the moment they had all been waiting for, the culmination of a season of hard work, grit, and teamwork. The day of the championship arrived, and the energy in the air was electric. The gym was packed with fans, both local and from neighboring towns, all eager to see who would take home the title. Jaden and his team entered the arena focused, but there was a sense of quiet confidence among them. They had worked too hard to let this slip away. The game was a back-and-forth battle, with neither team giving an inch. Every possession mattered, and every shot was contested. But once again, Jaden's poise and leadership stood out. He controlled the pace of the game, reading the defense and making the right plays at the right time. In the final moments, with his team up by 2 and the opposing team pressing hard, Jaden made the play that would seal the victory. He intercepted a pass intended for the opposing team's star player, sprinted down the court, and laid the ball in with seconds left on the clock. The buzzer sounded, and Jaden's team erupted in celebration. They were regional champions. As Jaden stood on the court, his teammates celebrating around him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride, not just in himself, but in what they had accomplished together. The whispers of a future star followed him wherever he went, but he stayed grounded. Jaden knew that his success wasn't just his. It belonged to his teammates, his coach, and his family. When he was handed the MVP trophy at the end of the game, he lifted it high, but immediately pointed to his teammates, signaling that the award belonged to all of them. It was a moment of triumph, not just for Jaden, but for everyone who had been part of his journey. Jaden had reached new heights, but in his heart, he knew this was just the beginning. There was still so much more to achieve, and he was ready for whatever came next. From far beyond his school and local community, college scouts and even some sports media outlets had taken notice of the rising star. Jaden's name was being whispered not just in the hallways of his school, but in conversations about the future of basketball. Yet, despite the increasing recognition, Jaden remained humble, always crediting his team and Coach Williams for their collective success. The semifinal game had been a test of his nerves and abilities. The pressure had mounted as the game ticked on, and with just minutes remaining, the score had been tied. But Jaden thrived under pressure. When the ball was inbound, he quickly called for a play they had rehearsed endlessly. His teammates moved into position without hesitation, trusting Jaden to guide them through the high-stakes moment. With his trademark reflexes, Jaden intercepted a crucial pass from the opposing team, taking control of the ball as he raced down the court. Weaving through defenders with ease, it looked like he was about to take the game-winning shot. But at the last moment, in a flash of brilliance, Jaden made a no-look pass to his teammate waiting in the corner. The crowd held its breath as the ball sailed through the air and swished cleanly through the net. The gym exploded with cheers. But Jaden wasn't finished. On the very next play, he made a jaw-dropping block, denying the opposing team a critical shot. And with just seconds left on the clock, he stepped to the free throw line and calmly sank 2 clutch shots, securing their victory. When the final buzzer sounded, his teammates rushed to lift him onto their shoulders. The win meant one thing: they were headed to the championship game. The buzz of their victory echoed throughout the school. Everywhere Jaden went, he was greeted with congratulations and admiration. Students, teachers, and even staff members expressed their excitement and belief that the championship was within reach. Jaden felt the weight of their expectations, but used it as fuel to push himself harder. Each day, he spent extra hours in the gym, refining his skills and perfecting new plays with his team. The thought of winning the championship for everyone who had believed in him kept him going. When the day of the regional championship finally arrived, the energy in the gym was electric. Fans from both schools packed the stands, creating a roaring atmosphere that sent adrenaline coursing through Jaden's veins. As he stepped onto the court with his teammates by his side, the nerves melted away, replaced by an intense focus. From the opening whistle, it was clear that Jaden was playing on a different level. Within minutes, he had scored the first points of the game with a breathtaking three-pointer that quieted the opposing team's fans. As the game went on, Jaden continued to dominate, stealing balls, making impossible passes, and sinking shots from every angle. His teammates fed off his energy, playing with the same fire and determination that had carried them through the season. The opposing team tried every strategy they could think of to stop him. They double-teamed him, put their best defenders on him, and attempted to cut off his passing lanes. But Jaden adapted, using the extra pressure to create opportunities for his teammates. His leadership on the court was undeniable. He called plays, encouraged his teammates, and kept their spirits high even when they briefly fell behind in the third quarter. In the final minutes of the game, with the score close, Jaden took control. He scored 8 points in rapid succession, including a stunning alley-oop that brought the entire crowd to its feet. As the final seconds ticked away, he made one last steal, racing down the court and finishing with an emphatic dunk that sealed the game. The buzzer sounded, and the gym erupted in celebration. Jaden's team had won the regional championship. His teammates swarmed him on the court, their faces lit up with joy. Coach Williams, usually composed, hugged Jaden tightly with tears in his eyes, telling him how proud he was of his growth and leadership. Amid the celebration, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. The most valuable player of this year's regional championship is Jaden Rodriguez. The crowd roared even louder as Jaden stepped forward to accept the MVP trophy. His hands shook slightly as he held the shining award, a symbol of his journey from overlooked to undeniable. As he lifted the trophy high above his head, his eyes scanned the cheering crowd, landing on his parents, who were beaming with pride and wiping away tears. In the days following their victory, Jaden's performance attracted even more attention. college scouts began reaching out, eager to talk to the young phenom who had proven himself as not just a skilled player, but a leader with poise under pressure. Reporters wanted interviews, and basketball enthusiasts from around the region discussed his potential future. Yet, despite the attention, Jaden remained grounded. He knew that his success was built on the support of his teammates, Coach Williams' mentorship, and the countless hours of hard work he had put in. The championship win was a huge milestone, but for Jaden, it was just one step in a much longer journey. There were still more goals to achieve, more ways to improve, and more dreams to chase. And Jaden, as always, was ready for whatever came next. As news of Jaden's incredible journey from rejection to MVP spread across social media and sports news outlets, his story began to reach far beyond his local community. One evening, as he was finishing up his homework, his phone buzzed unexpectedly. It was Coach Williams, sounding more excited than Jaden had ever heard him before. "Jaden, you won't believe this," Coach Williams said, his voice practically vibrating with enthusiasm. "A major sports brand has been watching you. They want you to be their youngest ever ambassador for a new national campaign." Jaden's heart raced as Coach Williams explained the details. The brand wanted Jaden to be the face of their "Don't Let Them Tell You No" campaign, which was aimed at inspiring young athletes to push through adversity and rejection. The idea was to use Jaden's story to motivate kids who, like him, had faced bias or had been told they weren't good enough. The very next day, Jaden and his parents met with representatives from the sports brand. They laid out their vision for the campaign, explaining how Jaden's story of overcoming racial bias and rejection embodied the core message they wanted to share with the world. "We believe your journey can inspire countless young athletes who face similar challenges," the brand representative said with a smile. "Your resilience and determination are exactly what we want to showcase." Jaden sat there, feeling a swirl of excitement and disbelief. All those long hours of practice, the setbacks, and the moments where he doubted himself were now going to serve as an inspiration for others. As he signed the contract to become the youngest ambassador in the brand's history, Jaden felt a new sense of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was now a symbol of hope for kids everywhere who had been told no because of who they were. When the campaign launched, it did so with a powerful commercial that highlighted Jaden's journey. The ad showed scenes of his early rejection, his relentless practice sessions, and his triumphant MVP moment. As Jaden's voice narrated the story, the words "Don't Let Them Tell You No" flashed across the screen, sending a clear and inspiring message to young athletes across the nation. Soon, Jaden's face was on billboards, in magazines, and featured in commercials nationwide. His family, filled with immense pride, gathered in their living room to watch the commercial unfold on television. Jaden's mother, tears shimmering in her eyes, reached out to hold her husband's hand. "Can you believe it?" she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "Our boy, inspiring millions." Jaden's father, swallowing a lump in his throat, nodded in response. He remembered all the nights he'd spent encouraging Jaden to keep going, telling him that success would come if he just kept pushing forward. Now, here their son was, an inspiration to athletes across the country, a beacon of hope for those who had been told they didn't belong. Jaden's younger sister couldn't contain her excitement. Bouncing on the couch, she pointed at the television, exclaiming, "That's my brother. He's famous now." For Jaden, seeing his face on giant billboards and hearing his voice in national commercials felt surreal. He often caught himself staring up at his own image, larger than life, with the words "Don't Let Them Tell You No" emblazoned beside him. In quiet moments, he reflected on how far he had come. He thought back to that first tryout where he had been ignored, left on the sidelines while others were chosen. The pain of that rejection still lingered, a dull ache that had once made him question everything. But now, that same pain served as a reminder of his resilience. He remembered the countless hours he had spent alone on the court, practicing until his muscles screamed and sweat poured from his brow. He thought about all the times he had considered giving up, when the obstacles seemed insurmountable. Yet, through it all, he had persevered, fueled by a determination that refused to be silenced. Now, As he saw kids wearing shoes with his name on them and heard stories of young athletes drawing inspiration from his journey, Jaden felt an immense sense of responsibility. His story was no longer just his. It belonged to every kid who had ever been told they weren't good enough, that they didn't belong. The message of the Don't Let Them Tell You No campaign was clear, and Jaden was proud to be the one delivering it. Amidst the whirlwind of his newfound fame came an invitation that felt like a dream. Jaden had been asked to speak at a national gala, an event that brought together some of the biggest names in sports. This was the pinnacle of the campaign, a moment that would see Jaden standing on stage, sharing his story with the very people who had shaped the sports world. On the night of the gala, Jaden found himself standing in front of a mirror in his hotel room, adjusting his tie with trembling hands. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. The boy who had once practiced alone on a neighborhood court was now about to address some of the most influential figures in the sports world. As he stared at his reflection, Jaden thought of all the people who had helped him along the way, his parents, Coach Williams, and his teammates. He knew that his journey wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about inspiring others to keep going, to keep pushing no matter how many times they were told no. With one final deep breath, Jaden smiled at his reflection. He was ready. This was his moment, and he was going to make it count. Looked back at the scouts, his voice calm but firm. "Because I've already found my team," Jaden said, his eyes full of conviction. "And it's not just about basketball anymore. It's about the people who believed in me when no one else did." The scouts exchanged glances, clearly taken aback by Jaden's response. For years, they had overlooked his talent, and now, even with their apology, they couldn't undo the past. Jaden had moved beyond seeking their validation. He had created his own path, one filled with purpose, resilience, and a team that stood by him from the start. With a respectful nod, Jaden walked away from the scouts, feeling a sense of closure. He no longer needed their approval or the offer they once withheld. His journey had taken him far beyond what any one team or tryout could define. As Jaden made his way back into the crowd, he was immediately surrounded by people offering congratulations and sharing how much his speech had inspired them. NBA stars, Olympians, and coaches alike praised his courage, not only for his achievements on the court but for the message he delivered, one of hope, perseverance, and self-belief. Amid the sea of praise, Jaden found his parents. His mother's eyes shimmered with pride, and his father's hand rested on his shoulder, a silent but powerful gesture of support. "You did it, son," his father said quietly. "You stood up there and told your truth. We couldn't be prouder of you." Jaden smiled, feeling the weight of his journey lift even further. It wasn't just about the speeches, the campaigns, or the accolades. It was about becoming the person he had always believed he could be, despite the obstacles. Later that night, after the gala had ended and the crowd had dispersed, Jaden sat alone in his hotel room, looking out at the city's skyline. He replayed the night's events in his mind, the speech, the standing ovation, the scouts who had once dismissed him. He thought back to all the times he had doubted himself, the moments when the road ahead seemed too long and too difficult. But in each of those moments, something inside him had kept him going. It wasn't just the desire to prove people wrong. It was the need to prove something to himself, that his dreams were worth fighting for. As he sat there, reflecting on how far he'd come, Jaden knew that this was only the beginning. There were more challenges ahead, more battles to fight, but he was ready. He had built something much stronger than fame or recognition. He had built resilience, the kind that could withstand anything thrown his way. With a quiet smile, Jaden pulled out his phone and scrolled through the messages of support that had poured in after the gala. One stood out, a message from a young basketball player in a small town miles away. "Thanks for telling your story, Jaden. I got cut from my team last year, but now I know I can keep going. You've inspired me to try again." Jaden's heart swelled as he read the message. This was why he had kept pushing forward, why he had shared his journey with the world. It wasn't about proving himself to those who once doubted him. It was about showing others that they, too, could rise above their setbacks. With a sense of purpose and peace, Jaden replied to the message, offering words of encouragement and telling the young athlete what he wished someone had told him years ago. Don't give up. You've got what it takes. Keep pushing, and don't let anyone tell you no. Jaden knew that his journey wasn't just his own anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever been told they couldn't make it, and he was determined to continue being the beacon of hope for every kid who had a dream. Professionals. The program aimed to provide guidance, support, and opportunities to those who might otherwise be overlooked. Jaden's mentorship initiative quickly gained momentum, drawing attention from athletes and organizations who were eager to be part of this positive change. He was no longer just a star on the court, he was becoming a leader in the movement for equality in sports. At every event, whether it was a basketball camp, a conference, or a speaking engagement, Jaden made sure to highlight the importance of believing in oneself and standing by those who believed in you. He often reflected on the people who had stood by him when others didn't: his parents, Coach Williams, and his teammates. Their unwavering support had fueled his journey, and now, Jaden was committed to being that same source of encouragement for others. During one of his basketball camps, a young athlete approached him nervously, much like the boy at the gala had. "Mr. Jaden," the boy began, his voice trembling with awe, "I don't think I'll ever be good enough to play for a big team." Jaden knelt down, looking the boy in the eyes with a kind smile. "You know," he said gently, "I once thought the same thing. But I learned something important. Talent isn't the only thing that makes you great. It's your heart, your effort, and your belief in yourself that really matter. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you don't belong." The boy's face lit up, inspired by Jaden's words. Moments like this reminded Jaden why he was doing what he was doing. It wasn't just about basketball, it was about helping others realize their potential and fight through the barriers they faced. As Jaden's influence continued to grow, he remained grounded. He still practiced tirelessly, honing his skills both on and off the court. He kept in close contact with Coach Williams, whose guidance remained a steady force in his life. Despite the fame, the endorsements, and the recognition, Jaden's priorities stayed the same. Stay true to himself, uplift others, and never forget where he came from. Years later, Jaden was invited to deliver a keynote speech at a prestigious sports leadership conference. As he stood at the podium, he looked out at the audience, a sea of faces that included top athletes, coaches, and young hopefuls, many of whom had been inspired by his journey. "Standing here today," Jaden began, "I'm reminded of a lesson my coach once taught me. Basketball, like life, isn't just about talent. It's about teamwork, perseverance, and character. It's about standing by those who believe in you and giving back to those who need someone to believe in them." His voice grew stronger as he spoke about his mission to ensure fair opportunities for all young athletes, regardless of their race or background. "There are so many talented kids out there who just need a chance I was almost denied. We have to be the ones who give them that chance. We have to make sure that no one is overlooked because of something they can't control." As the applause filled the room, Jaden felt the familiar rush of gratitude and responsibility. His journey had been filled with both triumphs and setbacks, but each experience had shaped him into the person he was today. He knew that his fight for equality in sports was far from over, but he was ready for the challenges ahead. Jaden's legacy, both as an athlete and an advocate, continued to grow. His work with Equal Play and his mentorship program opened doors for countless young athletes, helping them find their way in a system that had too often overlooked them. More importantly, Jaden's story became a symbol of resilience, integrity, and the power of staying true to oneself. And through it all, Jaden never forgot the words he had once spoken to a room full of kids who had faced rejection just like he had. "Don't let them tell you no." Jaden's leadership shone through. The gym was packed with fans, and the pressure was mounting. His teammates looked deflated, unsure how they could turn the game around. But Jaden, unfazed by the score, clapped his hands together, calling out to his team. "Come on, guys. We've been here before. We can still win this," he shouted, his voice cutting through the noise of the crowd. His words ignited a spark in his teammates. They had seen Jaden overcome adversity time and time again, and his confidence fueled their own. With renewed energy, Jaden took control of the game. He orchestrated plays with precision, finding open teammates and creating opportunities where there seemed to be none. His court vision, combined with his unwavering belief in his team, lifted their spirits. Slowly but surely, the gap began to close. Jaden's defense was relentless. He dove for loose balls, intercepted passes, and made crucial steals. On offense, he attacked the basket with determination, scoring points that brought the team within striking distance. With just a minute left on the clock, the score was tied. The crowd was on its feet, cheering with anticipation. As the final seconds ticked away, Jaden had the ball. The defense swarmed him, trying to stop him from making the game-winning shot. But Jaden kept his cool. With just seconds remaining, he drove to the basket, drawing 2 defenders to him. At the last moment, he passed the ball to Marcus, who was wide open in the corner. Marcus took the shot, and the ball swished through the net as the buzzer sounded. The gym erupted in cheers as Jaden's team celebrated their hard-fought victory. His teammates mobbed him, lifting him onto their shoulders in triumph. But even in that moment of glory, Jaden deflected the praise. It was a team effort, Jaden told the reporters after the game. Everyone stepped up when it mattered. We never gave up. Coach Williams stood nearby, watching with pride as Jaden handled the post-game attention with grace. He had watched Jaden grow from a boy who had been overlooked and rejected to a leader who inspired not just his team, but an entire community. In the weeks following that game, Jaden's fame continued to grow. Articles were written about his leadership on and off the court, and his story of perseverance was shared across social media. He was no longer just a talented basketball player. He had become a symbol of resilience, hard work, and integrity. Despite the increasing attention, Jaden stayed focused. He knew that the work wasn't over. There were still more games to play, more goals to achieve, and more kids who needed someone to look up to. Jaden continued to balance his basketball commitments with his advocacy work, making time for the mentorship program and basketball camps he had helped create. One evening, after a long day of practice and community outreach, Jaden sat down with Coach Williams. They talked about how far he had come and where he wanted to go next. "You've achieved so much, Jaden," Coach Williams said, his voice filled with pride. "But I know you still have bigger dreams. What's next for you?" Jaden smiled, thinking about the future. "I want to keep pushing myself, Coach. I want to take this as far as I can. But more than that, I want to help other kids see that they can do it too. I want to make sure no one else is overlooked like I was." Coach Williams nodded. "You're already doing that, Jaden. And I have no doubt you'll continue to make a difference, both on and off the court." As the season progressed, Jaden's team continued to excel. They made it to the state championship, where Jaden once again led his team with poise and determination. In the championship game, with everything on the line, Jaden's leadership was on full display. His calm under pressure, his ability to lift his teammates, and his relentless work ethic carried them to victory. When the final buzzer sounded and his team was crowned state champions, Jaden stood at the center of the court, surrounded by his teammates and coaches. The journey from that first painful rejection to this moment of triumph had been long and filled with challenges. But Jaden had never given up, and now, standing there with a championship trophy in his hands, he knew that every setback had been worth it. As the crowd cheered and reporters clamored for interviews, Jaden caught sight of his family in the stands. His parents were beaming with pride, and his younger sister was waving excitedly. In that moment, Jaden knew that his journey was far from over. There were still more goals to chase, more challenges to overcome, and more kids to inspire. Jaden's legacy, both as an athlete and as a role model, was only just beginning. He had already proven that with hard work, determination, and the right people by your side, anything was possible. Now, it was time to take that message even further and continue to show the world that no matter what, you should never let anyone tell you no. As Jaden gathered his teammates during the tense fourth quarter timeout, he locked eyes with each of them, his voice unwavering. "Remember why we're here," he said, his tone calm, but filled with determination. "It's not just about winning or losing, it's about giving everything we've got, every second we're on that court. We've worked too hard to give up now." His words echoed through the huddle, reigniting the fire in his teammates. They had come so far together, and they weren't about to back down. As the school year drew to a close, Westbrook High was buzzing with excitement. The gymnasium was filled with students, teachers, and parents, all eagerly awaiting the special assembly. Banners hung proudly on the walls, celebrating the basketball team's victories and, most notably, Jaden's incredible achievements. Principal Harris approached the microphone, her voice full of pride. Today, we gather to honor an exceptional young man who has brought not only athletic glory to our school but also become an inspiration to us all. Please welcome to the stage, Jaden Rodriguez. The crowd erupted into thunderous applause as Jaden walked to the podium. He felt a rush of humility and gratitude as he looked out at the sea of familiar faces, his family, teammates, coaches, and teachers. Taking a deep breath, Jaden began his speech. "Thank you all for being here today," Jaden said, his voice steady and clear. "When I first picked up a basketball, I never imagined I'd be standing here. My journey hasn't been easy, but it's taught me so much." He paused for a moment, reflecting on that first rejection that had once made him question everything. "There were times when I felt like giving up, times when it seemed like the world was against me," Jaden continued. "But I learned that hard work and determination can overcome any obstacle." Jaden's eyes scanned the crowd, meeting the gazes of his teammates, Coach Williams, and his family. "Success isn't just about talent," he said, his voice growing stronger. "It's about perseverance. It's about getting up every time you fall and staying true to yourself, even when others doubt you." His words reverberated through the gym, touching the hearts of everyone present. The room was captivated by the sincerity of his message. "Each of you has a unique journey ahead," Jaden continued, his gaze steady. "There will be challenges and there will be setbacks. But remember, your worth isn't determined by others. It's determined by your dedication, your integrity, and your willingness to keep pushing forward." Jaden's voice was now filled with conviction. Never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your dreams. Work hard, believe in yourself, and stay true to who you are. That's the real recipe for success, both on and off the court. As he finished his speech, the gymnasium erupted into cheers and applause. Students rose to their feet, visibly moved by his powerful words. Jaden could see tears in his parents' eyes, their pride radiating from them like a beacon. With a humble smile, he thanked the crowd one last time and stepped away from the podium. Jaden left the stage knowing that his journey was just beginning. He was ready to embrace whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead, not just as a basketball player, but as an ambassador for perseverance, integrity, and hope. If you enjoyed the story of Jaden, I've handpicked another story that will touch your heart. Don't miss it. Click here to watch it.